In this lesson, we're going to be talking about wireless networking. Wireless networking is sometimes called Wi-Fi. It's pretty ubiquitous these days. You can find it at McDonald's, you can find it at Starbucks, you can find it in malls. You can find it in a lot of places. Frankly, a lot of businesses use Wi-Fi not only sometimes to benefit their customers where they may offer open Wi-Fi, but often they are using Wi-Fi or wireless networking to transmit information around the store. Now, you would hope that that particular information would be encrypted and authenticated in some way, although you can't always guarantee that, but generally that's the case. So let me talk a little bit about wireless networking. And then in the next lesson, we'll be talking more about some tools that you can use to do probing around the wireless networking. So wireless networking, mobile devices generally have Wi-Fi installed in them, including most laptops made these days have wireless networking. So I've got wireless networking here, and you can see that I'm actually connected to a local wireless network here in my house. And in this particular case, it's an encrypted network, and it's using WPA2 encryption. One of the other types of encryption that you may run across is WEP or WEP. Now, WEP encryption has actually been broken in the past, and we'll talk about a tool that can be used to break WEP encryption in a subsequent lesson. But WEP encryption is particularly vulnerable to a type of attack that allows the encryption to be broken and the traffic to be read in plain text or seen in plain text. There are specific tools that you need to be able to do that. There's something called Open Wi-Fi where there's actually no encryption that takes place. There's no authentication. You can just connect, and we've actually got an example here locally of an open Wi-Fi network. So right now I'm using Mac OS and I'm connected to a wireless network, and I've got a Linux machine with a wireless adapter running inside of a virtual machine. You can see here, if I click on the network connections in the taskbar on the bottom, I've got the option of a wired connection, and I've got a wireless connection that I am tied to. I can also connect to a hidden wireless network. Now, the way that Wi-Fi works is most wireless networks will broadcast their name, and the name is called an SSID, and that SSID is a set identifier. So when you go to a particular location, you will have these SSIDs being broadcast, and you can see the different wireless networks that are available. Now, what you can do is you make it a little bit harder for people to connect to you by hiding the SSID. When I say hide the SSID, I simply mean we're not going to broadcast it. We're not going to continue to send out packets all over the place saying, hey, this is my SSID, you can connect to me if you want. Now, even if you broadcast SSID, unless you're using open authentication, you're still required to know a passphrase, if not a username and password. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to connect to the wireless network that my Mac OS is actually connected to, and I'm going to say it's WPA2 personal, and it's asking me for a password. So I've entered the password, and I've put in the WLAN name or the SSID, and now I can do a connect. And the same thing will work under Windows. There's basically the same mechanism. There's a little icon in the taskbar over near the clock, and it will tell you there are some wireless networks that are available. You can click on that. It will bring up some options, and you can connect in much the same way, where you say, I want to connect to one of these known, or I want to join an unknown network. So it looks like I am actually connected to this particular network now, after I entered the SSID and the passphrase. Now, I could also drop down here and disconnect from the one that was there and just connect to this one instead. So you see that I'm now disconnected from the hidden wireless network that I was connected to. And if I come down here, it should say I am connected to the one that was actually open authentication, and there's no passphrase associated with that. Now, for me, there's a reason for doing that, and that's because we are so far away here from much of anybody else that there's really not a lot of reason for doing the authentication. It's just easier given the lack of security requirements in terms of needing to encrypt and require passwords to just leave it open, so when we get new devices, then we can add them quickly and easily. If, friends or family come over and they have an iPad or an iPod Touch or some other device, maybe an Android tablet or something, they can quickly and easily connect without having to go dig up the password or tell them what the password is or whatever. They can just connect, and it's not a big deal. Now, a lot of places don't have the convenience of not having people close by or having a lot of traffic where you may be sitting outside. Certainly businesses could be open to things like war driving, where somebody may park outside of the building and the wireless signal actually is strong enough to get out to the curb, if not further. And so you could sit out in a car with a Wi-Fi device, whether it's a tablet or a PC or something along those lines, and could connect to the Wi-Fi network in the business. And of course, that exposes the business to a lot of vulnerability and liability, because if I can get on your business network, many of your business secrets or important information is now potentially open to me. So wireless networking offers a lot of convenience, but there's also risk associated. As I mentioned earlier, WEP is a pretty convenient and ubiquitous way of doing authentication and encryption. The problem is that it's open to being broken. WPA2 is better, although it also has some risks associated with being cracked and read in plain text. So you want to be careful about protecting your wireless network, and also be aware that the wireless network could very well be a source of attack or compromise.